Welcome back to Stooge Stream for another episode. I am your host, the Stooge, and this time around I have 12 Game Boy games that you should have in your collection and a couple of hidden gems in there that maybe you don't know about. So we'll get the more common ones out of the way first. And I'm kind of cheating with a few of them because I'm including more than one of the series, but you'll know why when you see. And first up, Kirby's Dream Land 1 and 2. Fantastic games. Now, these are very easy platform games that have zero level of difficulty to them, but infinite replay value, trying to find all the different abilities and things you can do with Kirby, trying to find all the hidden little things in all the levels. Great games. Must absolutely play. Next up, again, I'm cheating with 3 games. A trilogy, no less. Now, there has to be a proviso thrown on this. So, I'm not talking about the Super Nintendo remakes on the Game Boy Color or the Game Boy Advance. I'm talking about the original series only. So, these were their own games. And that's the Donkey Kong Land series. Now, Donkey Kong Land isn't to be confused with Donkey Kong Country. These are 3 entirely new games based off the Super Nintendo games, but with all new levels, all new stuff to do, all new secrets to find. They're made for the Game Boy, so they play a lot better than the scaled down Game Boy Color Donkey Kong Country or the Game Boy Advance Donkey Kong Countries, just because they weren't made for a screen that small. They were made for a Super Nintendo to be played on a TV. These were in fact made for a smaller screen, so they work a lot better. They're infinitely fun. They have the same level of difficulty as the original Donkey Kong Country games, but you get more. It's more Donkey Kong Country. How can you not want that? So look at that. We're already 5 out of 12 down, and we're only 2 minutes in, so I'm not going to waste a lot of your time today, folks. So, game that you should know about and you should probably already have in your collection. If you don't, run out and grab it. It's not one of the more expensive Game Boy titles, but it's one of the better ones, and that is Batman. Based on the NES title by Sunsoft. It's basically a black and white version of the NES game, but it is fantastic. It's so much fun. The only thing is, it's not really a Batman game since he's just shooting everything with a gun, but at the same time, it's a great game, and Batman happens to be in it, so it's worth getting. Sunsoft used to make some amazing games back in the day. The good thing about the Game Boy is it is region-free, so some of the more expensive titles, or some of the titles that are harder to find in your region, you can just import. Thus is the case with Adventure Island 2. I just imported it because it was cheaper. Now, the Adventure Island series is basically Hudson's take on Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy was kind of licensed to them to make for the NES, so they made Adventure Island, and then they just continued to make Adventure Island games, and some of them are really good, Adventure Island 2 being one of the best ones. This is basically just a portable version of Adventure Island 3 for the NES, and it was Adventure Island 2 on the Game Boy, but they're the same game. Lots of fun. If you like action platformers, get the Adventure Island series, be it on NES or on the Game Boy. Okay, another little cheater series here. So while there was a series of games on the NES at the same time concurrently, there was actually its own series of games on the Game Boy. Now these are very basic action platformers, but the sprite work in them is fantastic. They still look amazing to this day. They're games that you can pop in at any time and play for a couple of minutes or for an hour and finish. They're both really fun. There's actually 3 in the series, and I'm going to be getting the 3rd one shortly. They play almost identically, but just more of the same. And it's the Ninja Turtle series for the Game Boy. So you've got Fall of the Foot Clan, there's Ninja Turtles 2, and there was a 3rd one, Return to the Sewers. Really fun games. Just very basic action platform games. But if you like action platformers, you will like these. These are memorization games, so you memorize where the enemies are coming from. It makes it much easier, and then you get through them really simply. But still a lot of fun, and not that expensive on the Game Boy. Throw them there. Now, a couple of little hidden gems. So, the first 4 original Game Boy games in this series were actually just remakes of NES games or pieces of them. From the 5th one on, they became their own games. So, from Mega Man 5 on the Game Boy, they're just their own games, other than the Game Boy Advance remakes later on. So, you had the Mega Man 5 and then the Mega Man Extreme series on the Game Boy Color, which were their own Mega Man X games. So this is Mega Man Extreme 2, completely different to anything else. If you're a fan of Mega Man, you've got, I think there's 5 unique Mega Man games between the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and then a bunch on the Game Boy Advance as well. So very much worth checking these out. These aren't too expensive either. Game Boy being region free, you can import them, and they're fairly easy to figure out if you know Mega Man. So yeah, that was a cheater one. Sorry, I wanted to include one Game Boy Color game. The last 2. I never hear anyone talking about this game, but I grew up with this and I absolutely love it. And to this day, I can still pop it in and finish it whenever I want, but yet have a great time with it. It reminds me very much of Chippendales, but unique in itself with its own levels and so forth. Some great in-between levels. So it's an action platformer, and then in between you've got like a boat level and a racing level and stuff that are still action platformers as well, which is weird. But Mickey's Dangerous Chase. This is a really cheap game, and it is absolutely fantastic. Now you've got to be careful though, because there's a bunch of other games called Mickey Mouse and Mickey Mouse 2 and Mickey Mouse Crazy Castle. That's not the same game. What you want is Mickey's Dangerous Chase. It's actually a platformer, and a really good one at that. It's so much fun, and no one ever talks about it, so this is a must-have. Now, a game that has only over the past sort of 2 to 3 years come to any sort of notoriety, and all of a sudden just blew up everywhere. So getting an NTSC copy, or an English copy, I should say, US copy, or a PAL copy, I don't even think they made PAL copies of this actually, is damn near impossible. But the great thing about the Game Boy is it is region free. Not only that, it's gotten really expensive, whereas the Japanese copy is still relatively cheap. It's a fantastic game, and an offshoot of a really well-known series. Now the series I'm talking about is Castlevania, and the offshoot is Kid Dracula. So Kid Dracula is a parody of Castlevania by Konami, where everything's been chibiized, where, you know, there's sort of that squashed minifigure look. It's so much fun. It's a game in the Castlevania series that most people haven't played. You can get it on the NES or the Game Boy, and it's the same game. Excuse me. Either way, I recommend importing a copy, because it's just way too expensive to get the English copy, and it's easy enough to figure out. A fantastic title that everybody should have in their collection. Again, import the Japanese copy, it's so much cheaper. Kid Dracula is amazing. If you like Castlevania, there is no way you shouldn't have played this game. So that's the 12. Yes, I cheated with those and those and those by adding multiples in the series. I don't care. But that's the 12 Game Boy, and, well, one of them was a Game Boy Color game, that you should have in your collection. There'll be many more videos in this series, because I've got hundreds of Game Boy games. But what are your favorite hidden gems, games that people absolutely should own on the Game Boy? Put them in the comments below. I'd like to know, in case there's any I've missed in my personal collection. Until next time though, don't forget, adventure, excitement, a Stooge craves not these things. And here's one more look at the games. Make sure you like, share and subscribe for more videos.